Falcha. Welcome once again to the South Shore Method. I am your host and founder of the South Shore Method, Phil McCrory. So today is part 3 of the Compassionate Detachment series. I wanted to run through some scenarios, right, on how or what kind of things you're gonna see when you're trying to employ compassionate detachment. I'm going to talk about kind of what you shouldn't do first, right, or what usually happens, which is kind of the maladapted educational result or the maladapted consequence of all this stuff. So, without further ado, I'm going to I'm going to lay out some of these scenarios for you. All right. So, first scenario, let's say a child's acting very silly and seems to be playing a game by watching you get annoyed. And I think we've all dealt with this right now, especially with parents dealing with homeschooling stuff, right? The kids distracting themselves by getting a rise out of you, or just not wanting to do the work. They seem to be really enjoying like watching you get agitated. Um, so the emotion that a parent might feel in that moment would probably be like disrespect, right? I feel disrespected. I feel hurt that my child won't take this seriously. That like this is somehow they are having a commentary on, or they don't feel like it's legitimate that I'm asking them to do this. So what usually would happen, right, is that somebody might end the lesson, become agitated or angry, right, or lower their expectations. So and they'll just say like, well, fine, if you had 10 problems, why don't you just do 5? It's fine. It's five. Five's fine, honey. And so what you've done in that scenario, right, in that chain of consequences, is that child learns that, oh, if I act silly and if I goof around, I get to do less. So it's imperative that we don't fall into that trap and we wind up with a different educational result. So if we employ compassionate detachment, or if we use COMD, when a child's acting silly, you recognize that the child is only acting silly so that they won't have to do as much work. So then you do not engage with them emotionally. You stay detached, right? But compassionately detached. And that compassion part is the mindful part of remembering what of your overall goal as a parent is, right? Which is to create a whole individual, to create an individual in the future that can take care of themselves as much as possible, right? Because we're not, as parents, we're not going to be here forever. That's what we're here for, right? Is to guide the next generation into what they need to be doing. So if the end result, and if what the child's learning is if I act silly, I don't have to do my work. We cannot blame anybody but ourselves, right, for not being consistent, for not being stern, and not being compassionate in that moment where we have to think about their future selves, or being kind to their future selves and compassionate to their future selves. Because in the moment, the kid's going to suffer, right, because they don't want to do the work. Well, tough bananas. And you'd rather have them suffering over their homework, right, than some bigger problems later on in life. And this will help them learn that self-coping, that stick-to-itiveness, that perseverance, whatever, the will, whatever you want to call it, right? It's basically inhibition, where they put the desire to goof around to the side and they do their work. So another common scenario when kids are asked to do their work or asked to do anything that's effortful or something they don't want to do is they'll say, I'm stupid. This is too hard. And like, nobody likes me. And as a parent, it's like, oof, all of a sudden, like, that automatic emotional reaction of saying like, no, honey, like, of course not. That you're everyone likes you. I'm sorry. You feel pity, you feel compassion, right? And so in that moment, again, you lower the expectations. Now you're saying like, oh, I don't want you to suffer in this moment. Well, now I don't want them to feel that they're stupid or that nobody likes them or it's too hard or they can't do it. So now you have to do less. So what's the child going to learn in that moment? The child's going to learn that, oh, if I say I'm stupid and nobody likes me, then I don't have to do as much. We see this in society a lot right now, right? Is that the fact is that we let a lot of kids become victims. And once you become a victim rather than a survivor, right, if you decide that like things just happen to you rather than you have some agency in life, um, you will live a less fulfilled life. You will blame others, and it'll be difficult. Um, so just as somebody you want a child to be independent and strong-willed and all these things, the compassionate detachment and the compassion is remembering what kind of adult they're going to be, and giving them a break now might be kneecapping them later in life. Another, it's on the same kind of emotional tip, and all of these examples are about emotionality and detaching yourself from whatever that feeling. Our emotions are so strong as parents, and this is why parenting is so hard. Is because to do the right thing means in the moment you feel like you're hurting your kid, but you're not. It's counterintuitive. You're not hurting them by letting them get away with something that you know you shouldn't. They should be finishing their homework. And you say, don't forget about it. Later in life, the kid's going to have a harder time following through in college, or having a harder time following through on projects at work, or feeling overwhelmed, and the stress and the anxiety will build. And then none of us as parents want that. So if a child, we're asked them to do something difficult, like, whether it doesn't matter what the age of the child is, right? Ask you to do something difficult they don't want to do, homework, yada, 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 chores, help me with dinner, whatever it is. And they say, you're mean, this is torture, you hate me, you think I'm stupid, you're worthless, this is exactly what you think. Ooh, as a parent, like this, does anything kind of hurt worse? We have to not take it personally. It's a lot easier, even as teachers will recognize this, right, as other educators. It's a lot easier to take it not personally from the kid that who's just acting out. But when it's your kid all of a sudden, oof, that hurts. So to put away that shame that you've made your kid feel that way, right? The pity, the compassion, all that is an illusion. The reality is, right, and you need to be compassionately detached and be mindful, be above the moment, right? And be compassionate towards that adult when they're 35, just like you're 35 now, and you wish somebody had been a little more structured with you and really pushed you to do what you wanted to do, right? That 35-year-old person is going to thank you. Hopefully you're still around for them when they're 35, right? But just in case you're not, knowing that they're going to be okay, that's what our mindful objective as parents is. That's the compassionate detachment we need to take. So if the child's saying, you're mean, this is torture, you think I'm stupid, and you lower the expectations, you abandon the lesson, and this is and I could have an entire video on this, and maybe I will. When child says, you're mean, this is torture, you hate me, you think I'm stupid, and you go, no, I don't, you're important, you're the best, you're the sunshine, I love you so much. And of course, all of those things are totally valid, and you should be saying these things to your child, but not in this moment. In this moment, it's a dangerous thing to do with your child. Because what the lesson they're learning and what the behavior is going to be reinforced next time is saying that you're increasing the chance, because you're making them feel good when they do this, is that they're going to resort to using this tactic in the future. So the likelihood they're going to say, I suck, nobody likes me, I hate myself, and then start to internalize that every time they meet something difficult, is a recipe for disaster. And again, I'm going to have another video, and you extrapolate this. And for older kids who are talking about more serious, kind of scary stuff for parents, this is exactly why it's happening. And parents don't realize that they're reinforcing those behaviors. It's tragic. It's unfortunate. Is that the more we try to prevent our children from suffering, the more suffering we cause them later on. Because we have to, nobody is, nobody gets out of suffering. Nobody's absolved of suffering. The only people who do not suffer, and this is important to remember, everybody suffers, and the only people who aren't suffering are the people yet to be born or the people who have died. So we choose mindfully, right? We make a concentrated decision about where we want our children to suffer. Would we want them to suffer and learn a lesson, or we just want them to suffer and not be able to get out of their patterns because they've been in them for 25, 30 years? So we can break these chains, right? And you might recognize that maybe your parents did this to you, right? Well, we can break this cycle. Or maybe you're parenting in a reaction to your parents, so you're doing the opposite. Well, if you go full opposite, right, so in this, I'll start over. Fourth scenario is, the behavior is a little more extreme, a little more intense, right? And this is where I think parents have the most trouble, is that it's because the more intense the behavior, the more intense the desire of the parents to just mitigate that behavior and kind of move on. right? Instead of learning from it and putting their holding them to account and making sure that they change that behavior and then reward them after they change the behavior, and only then. It's really difficult to do that. So let me talk about the scenario. Let's say a child, you ask them, I need you to do your math homework, and a child throws their books across the room, right? Raises their fist to hit you or spits on you or hits you or threatens to kill you or whatever it is, right? The two emotions that a parent might feel in that moment are like disrespect and fright, a little scared. And like that usually results in a little bit of anger too, right? And so in that moment, really the reaction of parents, the usual reaction, right, the kind of maladaptive reaction is going to be to lower the expectations, right? Say, okay, well, just do 1 instead of 5, and then we'll be done, okay? You've just rewarded that kid for doing that violent behavior, and the likelihood it's going to happen again is increased. The other things that parents might do is go, how dare you? Or no, right? Or parents might believe in corporal punishment, right? In hitting your kid and smacking him a little bit, hitting him on the bum, or hopefully hitting him on the bum, and not much beyond that. I don't believe that hitting your children works in any way. The corporal punishment just doesn't work as well as positive reinforcement. But more than that, you're going to have to keep upping your game. Take it from a child who got smacked around a little bit, like. My mother loved me very much. We weren't abused, but she came from a tough Irish house where they definitely treated her rougher than they treated us, right? When we misbehaved, we got the hand. Now, I learned really quickly is that the hand is over real quick. And as soon as I was big enough, the hand didn't matter at all. Not at all. So, and not only that, but it didn't teach me to shape my behavior. It was very easy to smack me on the bum and yell at me, right? It's a lot harder to take away my Nintendo for a week. You can't play any Zelda. Sorry. I would be devastated. I would try to make sure that never happened again. Right? But instead, you mouth off, you get hit, I get to go about my business. Not a big deal. Go to southshoremethod.com, contact me. Also right now, the YouTube thing, click, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word. I want this knowledge to get as many people, and help me get this stuff off the ground. All right, appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time.